Hey, hey, hey. Happy Wednesday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, 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 gang. Welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch. Brought to you by, amazingly enough, thegaminggang.com, which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard. Tonight is Wednesday, August 4th, 2021. This is live stream 683. If this is your first time joining me, let me point out this is very, very casual, just kicking back, putting our feet up. We are not performing rocket surgery by any stretch of the imagination. We're just talking about tabletop games. So the first half of the show I devote to the latest in tabletop gaming news. And then the second half of the show, I will take a look at a tabletop game, amazingly enough, right? So today I am going to unbox and page through the Swords and Wizardry Complete box set from Frog God Games. So we are also going to take a peek at the accessory pack that is available as well. So we're going to dive into some cool role-playing game action. Now, of course, I had already reviewed the Swords and Wizardry Complete book. I think it's going on almost 2 years now, and really, really liked it. I am very, very curious to find out what the box set looks like. If we've seen any like updates, little editing done, anything like that, or if it's just simply one section of the hardcover book put in a booklet and another section in a booklet. So we're gonna find out. Although I have to admit, I do believe the accessory pack is all new material. So we will find out for sure. Of course, if you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, ding that bell. It'll not only let you know when the dispatch airs right here on YouTube, it'll also let you know when I upload other videos, such as tomorrow's review of Quetzal, which is from Gigamic Games. And it's available here in the U.S. through Hachette Games. So tomorrow morning, you will see my review for Quetzal. It's done. It is in the can. It's good to go. It's all ready to rock and roll, basically. So it is if you're not familiar with the game, it is a lightweight worker placement set collecting game with kind of a Indiana Jones-ish sort of vibe to it because you're collecting artifacts. So you'll have to find out what I think. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Of course, this is a live stream, so that also means chat's available. It's not on screen. It's one of the ways that I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But you also have to be a subscriber to the channel for, I think, if I remember right, it's 48 hours before you're able to take part in chat as well. But if you want to say howdy, maybe you've got a question, a comment, by all means, chime in, and I will do my best to respond. So far, we've got Nicholas Stanishek has joined us in chat. He's first out the gate tonight, and I know Nicholas is looking forward to seeing what's in this Swords and Wizardry Complete box set. So he and I are both curious. So stay tuned. Be about 30 minutes of news before we jump on into that. All right. So without further ado, let's jump on into the news because Capstone Games has announced a new game from designer Alexander Pfister. It's coming this fall. Here's the scoop on Boone Lake. With a group of pioneers, you have left civilization behind to settle along the shores of Boone Lake, a long forgotten region inhabited by humans long ago. This unexplored area beckons you. Become part of the new community and commit yourself to the common good. Explore the landscapes, build houses and settlements, raise cattle, produce raw materials, and develop your infrastructure. Do your best to automate these processes. Seize the opportunity to make the best of your new life in Boone Lake. Boone Lake is an expert game by Alexander Pfister, where you are finding yourself improving your life and your group's life in this new territory. But how you accomplish this is completely up to you. Introducing a novel action mechanism, each game progresses differently. Will you focus on expansion, or maybe you contribute to creating an infrastructure, or possibly pursue your own agenda? Carefully consider what you choose, as each action benefits everybody else. Boone Lake is for 1 to 4 players, ages 14 and up, plays in around 2 hours. It's going to carry an MSRP of $69.95 when it arrives in November. Interesting. Very, very interesting. I dig meaty games. I really, really do. So definitely, this looks like it could be something to keep your eyes peeled for. Unfortunately, some of the news pieces today, I don't have a whole lot of images to share. I wish I had a bit more about Boone Lake that I could share with you. But this does sound pretty interesting. And I'm one of these kind of like city builder, town builder kind of fans as well. So this could be pretty interesting. Talking about pretty interesting, Modiphius Entertainment is releasing a James Bond villain themed board game. It's coming next spring. Here's what I know about Spectre, the board game. In Spectre, the board game, which launches spring 2022, players take on the role of one of the many iconic villains from the James Bond film franchise, competing with each other to become Spectre's number one. Are you simply in the game to acquire gold bullion? Oh, let's see. So that'd be Goldfinger, right? Or are your aspirations more philosophical, safe in the knowledge that the world would be better off with you running it? Sounds a little more like Dr. No. Each villain has their own plot inspired by the films, such as Dr. No and Diamonds Are Forever, driving them along the path to becoming Spectre's number one. No matter how hard you try, 007 is always there, waiting to disrupt your plans and reveal your secrets. Spectre the board game features iconic weapons, locations, and characters from the James Bond films. Players will be able to assemble devices, spy on their opponents, blackmail their rivals in order to build their own criminal empire, and strategically deploy their agents around the globe to infiltrate key installations. Players will need to work behind the scenes to develop their nefarious plots and become 007's biggest threats. Spectre the board game is designed for 2 to 4 players, ages 10 and above. The James Bond film franchise is beyond iconic, said Chris Birch, co-founder at Modiphius Entertainment. While most fans put themselves in the role of the hero, this game puts players in the shoes of Bond villains instead. If you haven't met the villainous Ernst Stavro Blofeld, pictured right here, portrayed by Donald Pleasance, Rosa Kreb, she is from Russia with Love, and Raul Silva. It's not ringing any bells. Anyway, if you haven't met these villains before, the game will guide you through their exquisite evil expertise and how to employ them against 007. So grab your Persian cat, call your favorite henchman as you prepare your newest monologue. It's time to get down to business and start building that moon base. Moonraker and world-destroying Mega Laser. Spectre, the board game, is once again for 2 to 4 players, ages 10 and up. Plays in 20 to 45 minutes. There is no MSRP information available just yet. This is a spring release, so this is a ways off. But once I learn about that, I will definitely get more info out there for you. Once again, this is set for release in spring 2022. Nice. That sounds very cool. Although I got to admit, looking at the back, and granted, that's not sharing tons of information with the image that's on the back of the box, it looks very Euro-ish. It looks very much like a Euro game. I'm like, huh. Well, so I'm taking a guess. There's probably components that we are not actually getting a chance to see. So this sounds pretty interesting. I would definitely want to see if they've got Robert Shaw's. Gosh, now I can't remember his character's name. He was one of the villains in From Russia with Love. So Kevin Smith is with us. Gary Clarkson has popped in. We haven't seen Gary in a while. Good to see you, Gary. John Vogel is in chat. And our good pal, JP Felconer Honor, has arrived as well. And JPF points out, George Lazenby was so underrated as Bond. I thought he was quite good. I completely agree. I thought George Lazenby was pretty damn good as I think On Her Majesty's Secret Service is a really underappreciated Bond movie. In my opinion, now this is just me. I am one of these guys where, Connery's my Bond, like everybody else. Although I think Daniel Craig is an excellent Bond. But I've got to say that I think George Lazenby in On Her Majesty's Secret Service was better than anything Roger Moore did. And I've got nothing against Roger Moore. But I do think that On Her Majesty's Secret Service is criminally underappreciated. All right. So Gary mentioned that he loves those classic Bond movies. I got to admit, I saw this was a few years ago, and I'm almost positive that the TV I had at the time was 720p, which at that point that was the high def that we had available to us. And I'm trying to remember, there was a cable channel that was showing the classic Bond movies, the Sean Connery Bond movies, and they were all in HD. And I got to admit, it looked kind of bizarre. Just like some movies just in high definition, especially like 1080p, look kind of odd. Great example, Titanic. Titanic just looks very weird in 1080p. Just got to say. I know I'm up on a tangent here, but I am very, very interested in this game. Being a Bond fan. And I think it's pretty interesting that each of the players gets to take on one of Spectre's agents. So kind of cool. Kind of cool. Jason Cliff is joining us in chat. Good to see ya. Nicholas says Piers Morgan was a great Bond. Piers Morgan? Then you mean Bronson? What is it? Pierce Bronson. Yeah. Pierce Bronson, or whatever. Which is funny because he's Irish. He's an Irish actor, and it's funny when you get to actually hear him talk. His not acting. He's got a pretty interesting brogue. He really does. So, Jason says it was probably the TV mode. Brosnan, thank you, Kevin. It's like, can't get that to roll off my tongue. The hell's going on here? All right, moving right along. Let's talk about some role-playing games. because there are two new releases for the Forbidden Lands role-playing game. They are up on Kickstarter for Free League Publishing. Here's the skinny on The Book of Beasts and The Blood March. Forbidden Lands is growing bigger and more dangerous. This Kickstarter offers not just one, but two major expansions for the multiple award-winning Forbidden Lands retro fantasy survival RPG. The Book of Beasts, a bestiary you can play, beautifully illustrated and filled to the brim with murderous monsters and lethal encounters. Then there is the Blood March, a campaign book expanding the game world and including a full campaign, Legacy of Horn. Come join us in making these books a reality and also to help us to fill them with Forbidden Lands goodness. The Book of Beasts is, once again, a bestiary you can play. It's going to present at least 25 new monsters in great detail, with further bonus monsters unlocked as stretch goals. Each beast comes ready to play with tailored random encounters, presenting the game master with a handy set of mini adventures to go. The book also includes legends about each monster, introduces the option to harvest resources from slain beasts, and lets the player characters use their lore skills to gain insight into a monster's strengths and weaknesses. This will help them defeat, or at least survive an encounter with, the book's monstrosities. With this expansion, Forbidden Lands gets a whole lot weirder. Yes, I'm talking about the Blood March. That's the name given to the volcanic region west of Ravenland, now accessible as the Shadow Gate Pass is again opened. This ancient place of battle-ready horse riders and secretive dwarves is rapidly changing due to the demonic vegetation spreading across the land. Most see this red curse as a threat to all that is good, while others view it as a good thing, or at least a necessary evil needed to reach other goals. The PCs can choose a side or side with themselves, as the Legacy of Horn campaign sets the PCs on a hunt for Horn's Astra, a legendary set of artifacts sought by many in the Ashen Land. These powerful items are said to be able to stop the demonic growth or be powerful enough to ensure its triumph. This Kickstarter project is already well past the 500% funding mark. You can reserve copies of both books in hardcover for a $64 pledge, or you can get them in PDF for a $36 pledge through August 26th, with an expected delivery of both digital and physical books of next August, which I was kind of surprised. It's pretty far out there for digital release. But we've got two new books for Forbidden Lands, which was one of my favorite role-playing game releases of 2019. Really, really dug it. Really, really like it a lot. In fact, I don't feel too bad that my Forbidden Lands box set and the Bitter Reach expansion, or well, it's actually like an adventure book, did not sell in last week's auction. So I'm like, I don't feel that bad. I don't feel that bad. Because I do like the system itself. Setting's pretty interesting. Although I have to admit, the one adventure book that they released, I got to see it in PDF. And I'm trying to remember the name of it. The Mad, like, Melogized Mage or something like that. I had 4 adventures in it, and one adventure was pretty good, and the other 3, well, a couple of them, to me, weren't even really adventures. I thought that was a misstep for the series. But everything else I've seen is very, very well done. Top notch. All right. Talking about another release that's coming next year. Paizo has revealed the Book of the Dead for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Here's the deets. The Dead are rising. This blasphemous tome gives players and GMs everything they need to bring the shambling menace of the undead to their Pathfinder adventures. This book includes tools for fighting against the undead horde, but also options for the players themselves to control or even become undead creatures. GMs will find new tools and haunts, as well as information about the undead plagued lands of the Lost Omens campaign setting. A massive bestiary section full of undead creatures brings more threats for GMs to use and summonable creatures for players, including more versions of classic undead like vampires, skeletons, and zombies. Oh my! This 224-page hardcover rulebook also includes a full adventure. How about that? Themed around fighting the undead. This hardcover is going to carry an MSRP of $49.99. The Book of the Dead for Pathfinder 2nd Edition is going to arrive next spring. I found it kind of interesting. Now, once again, I am not the most well-versed person when it comes to Pathfinder. There's a lot of Pathfinder materials that I have never seen, especially when we're talking about first edition. But this strikes me as unusual, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but it's a bit unusual for a Paizo source book for Pathfinder to also have an adventure in it. So I thought that was a little odd. Then again, I could be completely wrong. So Doug Roberts and Russell Higgins have arrived in chat joining us tonight. Good to see you both. Welcome aboard. Kick back and enjoy the chat. All right, my final news piece of the evening. There's a new science fiction role-playing game that's powered by the Fudge system. Those of you out there who are familiar with Fate is kind of built on Fudge, and Fudge is still available. Anyway, this new RPG is out in PDF, and it's called Xenopolitan. Xenopolitan is an RPG about everyday life in an alien metropolis. Live the life of an extraterrestrial person with real-world problems. Play as a human or extraterrestrial entrepreneur, student, artist, social worker, politician, reporter, criminal, detective, or anything else, and experience life in this galactic futurescape. The year is 2099. Ingress is a city with 90 million people from thousands of different species and planets. It flies in the skies above Earth and is a hub for extraterrestrials conducting business with various Earthling corporations and governments. Players are denizens of this sprawling cosmopolitan city, and their backgrounds and goals can be as diverse as the city's population. Xenopolitan is a complete game based on the popular Fudge system. The rules are fast, flexible, and easy to learn. The broad skill system enables game masters and players to tell a wide variety of stories and create characters from all walks of life. Players might be reporters for a media corporation, members of a rock band, or partners in a law firm. The possibilities are as vast as real life. This game does feature the ability for players to easily create their own extraterrestrial species by combining various advantages, drawbacks, and psychic powers. Want to play a parasitic bacteria or a being of pure energy? It's quickly done with Xenopolitan's fun, creative character creation system. Xenopolitan's conflict resolution system can generate non-binary results with interesting complications and encourages active participation from the players. Xenopolitan also supports many different styles of play and includes numerous story ideas for one-shot sessions or full campaigns. And of course, there are pages upon pages of groovy artwork with cool aliens. The 74-page PDF of Xenopolitan is available over at DriveThruRPG, and it is pay what you want. So there's that. So kind of interesting. I thought this sounded pretty unique, especially for one, it's built on Fudge. I haven't heard anybody talk about fudge in years. And I am so old that I was actually at Gen Con in Milwaukee when fudge first came out. In fact, I bought it. We played in a Burrows and Bunnies inspired fudge game, Elliot and I, and it was pretty funny. It was very entertaining. All right, so that is it for the news tonight. Of course, talking about DriveThruRPG, keep in mind the Gaming Gang and thus the Dispatch are affiliated with the One Bookshelf site. So if you are going to visit, say, DriveThruRPG, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a little portion of that sale. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep the Gaming Gang around. Kabuki Kid has arrived in chat. Good to see you, Double K. Double K's in the house. So, Russell Higgins says, I want to play the space vampire from Soulbound. Or was it Life Force? Yes, Life Force. I remember that movie. Made absolutely no damn sense. But I remember I saw that when it came out. And we were like, man, that movie was so cool. That movie was really cool. And it was like, made absolutely no sense whatsoever. I don't know. Maybe the nudity had something to do with it. And we're like, I don't know, 17 years old. Could be. Although, I mean, special effects wise, it was all right. Special effects were pretty decent on it. It was a British movie. I do remember that much. All right. So before we jump in and start taking a look at Swords and Wizardry, the complete box set, a couple of things I did want to mention. So today I started my cardiovascular rehab. And I thought it was funny because now if you follow the show, if you've been, following the Gaming Gang for a few years, when I had a stent put in, I had to do cardiovascular rehab. That was like 3 years ago. So now I'm doing it again, but of course now it's for a triple bypass. And I just started doing all the exercises like I used to, So I'm on the exercise bike and I'm on the treadmill. And one of the nurses is a nurse who was there when I did the cardiovascular rehab the first time. And of course, she remembers me and everything else. And the two nurses were like, you need to take it down a notch. It's like, you're gonna be sorry that you're pushing it this hard, which I really wasn't. And they're like, yeah, you're gonna be really sore. So slow down. So I'm like, okay, all right. It's like, that's fine with me. All right, it's Mew is with us in chat. So they say they are pretty excited to see this box set. And that they're glad to hear that I started my cardio rehab. Yeah, 36 sessions. So it's gonna run for 3 months. Although I have some days I'm gonna miss because for one, I'll be at Gen Con. If there's still a Gen Con. I don't know. Way things are going. This Delta variant. Although it is in Indiana. So. But I will be super bummed if it's canceled. And I have to, because at this point now, if I cancel my reservation over at Crown Plaza, I get charged for a night. So I won't be real happy if it gets canceled and I have to shell out like $250. So, hey, Boris is joining us in chat as well. We got a good chat going tonight. Very cool. All right, the other thing I wanted to mention, and I'll make this real quick. Don't forget, week 2 of the Gaming Gang Game Auction 2021 is going on right now. I've got a bunch more games that are out there up for auction. So you can definitely swing over to the gaminggang.com. You will see there's a little ad, kind of little image ad that shows the auction. And one of the cool things I've got the Tales from the Loop, Tales from the Flood, and Our Friends the Machines as an auction item. There's some GMT stuff. There's some regular, board game stuff. There's role-playing game stuff. So good mix. I am planning on probably doing 6 weeks of the auction because I'm putting up like 10 or 11 items. But I mean, some of them have multiple. Like, for an example, the Tales from the Loop has 3 books. But I'm doing like 10 or 11 because I can't be like lugging all this stuff around to like ship out 50 items at one time. And those of you who had actually been the high bidders for last week, those items are going out tomorrow. They're going out in the mail tomorrow. So very cool. So Russell Higgins says there will be a Gen Con. I agree. I understand. Kringle is chanting box set, box set. Damn. I don't know. The Madman and Flaming Heron aren't here to drop the ban hammer. Kringle gets out of hand. Anyway, I just wanted to point out that there's some good gaming items that are available for auction. And this is how I keep the gaming gang around. Essentially, that's what I do. Normally, I would just be taking this stuff to Gen Con at the auction there, but there is no auction at Gen Con this year. All right, so we aim to please. So Kringle can get ready because I am going to be taking a first look at the Swords and Wizardry Complete box set, which is from Frog God Games. This set does contain 4 booklets, character sheets, dice, and more, as far as I understand. This set does carry an MSRP of $59.99. The accessory pack that we're also going to take a look at contains a referee screen and 2 booklets. Does carry an MSRP of $34.99. I see Bane Kerr has made it into chat. Bane has pointed out that they catch the show a lot, just never live. So welcome. So Kringle's like, no. Kevin says they might go to a pop-up Gen Con at one of the flagship game stores. I know, I'm joking. Friendly local game store. So 245 Triaxon says, it's happening. I got a notice of the companies that are going to be part of the pop-up Gen Con. Half of them are like, oh, cool. And the other half are like, snooze. So, all right. Without further ado, let's swing on over to the other camera. Because here I've got the Swords and Wizardry Complete box set. I'm not going to open this. We're just going to look at the box. So, so Kevin says they've seen some other unboxings. It does have a set of nondescript dice. I assumed it did. I assumed the dice were going to be, they're dice. All right. Anyway, let's flip this on over. Take a look at the back real quick. Swords and Wizardry is a game for 2 to 8 players, ages 10 and up. Well, damn it. What if I want 9 players? Played on a tabletop with paper and dice. One of the players is the referee, who describes and interprets the fantastical world, and the others play the role of warriors, magic users, clerics, druids, and other heroes. Swords and Wizardry has relatively simple rules compared to most fantasy role-playing games. It is easy to learn the basics and begin playing quickly, but it offers decades of enjoyment. A universe of magic and adventure awaits you from the moment you open this box. So, speaking of opening it, let's get this shrink wrap off. Also do want to point out, this is not a review, folks. sometimes people say, "Oh, Jeff, that was a great review. Thanks for the review." And then it's like, yeah, but it was just an unboxing. It's not a review. And then people will see that comment for the video and they'll think, oh, so this is a review. And then they get mad and say my review sucks when it's not a review. I never say it's a review. I say it's a first look, unboxing, page through, what have you. And actually, these aren't that bad. These dice look all right. But we are missing a six-sider. There is no six-sider in this bag. There's 2 8s. That's funny. It's Muse says, it's not a review. It's just a view. Yeah, it's an unboxing. It's a page through. But what happens is people will sit there. We got a little bookmark. I have the power. People will watch and they'll think it's a review. And then they're like, wow, that review sucked. And then they comment that the review sucked. And they give the video a thumbs down. It's like, but it's not a review. I never said it was a review. All right. So I assume our author here is Matt Finch. So here we have a little thank you note from Matt. I wonder if we've got any other authors here. So Spells and Magic, the referee book. I'm kind of surprised. I would have thought the player book would be on top. Monsters. All right, come on. Let's just do this. There we go. There's the player book. We've got character sheets. Is this a whole pad of character sheets? It is. It is a whole pad of character sheets. That's nice. Dual-sided? No, just one side. So Kringle says, we'll pay you a D6 next week for a D8 today. Kevin says, I apparently got the factory screw up. Well, sort of like when I got, which was an excellent deal. I'm not sure if they still have that going on with Goodman Games. When I got their like first-time fan kit, and that included the Zaki dice. And I got them, and they were green except for one. Or they're blue except for one, and it was green. I think they're blue, and I got one that was green. I was like, what? How did that happen? But they were very nice, and they did send me a new die. So that was cool. So Kringle says, wow, those books look thin. Well, I should mention that the actual hardcover book of Swords and Wizardry Complete is not that long. Off the top of my head, if I remember correctly, I think it's about 140, 150 pages, somewhere around there. All right, so let's jump on in. We're going to flip through really quick. All right, so once again, it is Matt Finch who is the author. So I don't see anybody else as far as writer credit. So I'm curious. What I'd like to find out, and I've mentioned this a few times when I was talking about actually taking a look at this and doing the unboxing, is I'm curious if this has had any other editing at all. And right off the bat, I see we've got the same foreword from Tim Kask. And it looks like that might be the same introduction from Matt Finch, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they haven't cleaned stuff up. Because I would think they would have. And I really, really like the hardcover complete. It was just, there were a few little editing hiccups, which I really didn't hold against it. So one of the aspects I like about Swords and Wizardry is so Russell says it's 126 pages. Yeah, that actually is very, very possible. Because I know I zipped through it really fast. So it's Mew says white box fantasy, or is it fantastical medieval? I just did a review of it too. Now I can't remember what the FME stands for, is based on this system. Similar. They are similar. But what I was going to say I like about Swords and Wizardry is that we have there we go, Fantastic Medieval Adventure. Yes, FMA. That's why the FME threw me off for a second. I was like, what is the E for? Kringle says, I love Complete. I agree. To me, and once again, it's not based on first edition Dungeons and Dragons. And when I say first edition, I mean advanced D&D. It has a lot of the advanced classes in it. So that's one of the aspects of the old school essentials advanced rule book that's coming out soon. That same kind of thing, that it's like AD&D, but makes more sense. And it's a little streamlined. So Kringle says, how small is that print? Looks tiny to me. I'm old, though. It is small. I'm going to tell you that right off the bat. For one, I don't have massive hands. I don't have tiny little hands, but I don't have huge monster hands. I would say that, see, now I can read it from here, so that's good. So as an example, it says, for the ranger, you and your fellow rangers are the inheritors of ancient scholarship, students of forgotten skills and lore passed on from teacher to student over the generations. So I can read it, but yeah, this is really small. So, but then again, these are, small. This is like, this is digest size. I think A5 is a little bit bigger than this. Anyway, one of the things I definitely like about Swords and Wizardry is it's an OSR game, old school Renaissance game, but I've always been a fan of class and race separate. Whereas if you are looking at like BX, then you've got your class and race together. So if you want to play an elf, then you are an elf. You are not an elf fighter. You're not an elf magic user. Kind of a combo of both. So, and that is one thing as far as with White Box, which I completely agree. I reviewed White Box, and I agree with Mew. It's Mew, I should say. It's a fantastic bargain, and it is really well done. All right, so we're just going through. This is just essentially the player facing aspects of it. So most of it so far has just been the classes, basically giving us a breakdown of how a round breaks down. So you're going to declare your spells. Well, I'd say combat round. So Kevin says that classic font is readable at small sizes. Yes, actually it is. So Kevin also points out, I've seen some OSR people my age and older complaining about needing the reading glasses for these. I have to point out, I do wear contacts. The contacts that I wear are kind of like reading glasses. Yeah, it's kind of odd. All right, so we've got the regular combat sequence. We've got the alternate combat sequence, 1 and 2. So I recall in the complete hardcover book, there is the option for the ascending armor class, which I have not seen yet. So we have specific combat situations, turning the undead. But if you notice, everything so far in here is just rolling up your characters and how do we fight? The brave adventurers prepare to enter the dungeons. So an example of gameplay here. Talking about high-level adventuring. Now, this artwork is all new. So Jason says there's space in the box for a magnifying glass or for reading glasses, or as some of my friends refer to them, your readers. So that's the player book. How many pages do we have here? 60. So it's 60 pages in the player book. Now let's take a look at the referee book. I had to admit, the artwork's pretty cool. I do like the artwork. So we're going to jump in here and we get designing a dungeon adventure. Talking about sample map keys, map symbols. Summary of important dungeon facts. We have generating encounters. So we've got a variety of random tables here as well. Mixing monsters in an encounter. Wilderness adventures. One thing that I find kind of unusual is that most OSR books, like the core books, really don't discuss a whole lot about wilderness adventures. There's usually only a few pages devoted to wilderness adventuring, which I find very surprising because it is something that became a big deal in Dungeons and Dragons as you started to move away from just always dungeon delving. So we're getting into some specifics about combat. Here we got some ship combat. I got to be honest, this looks different. I got to say, this looks different than, and of course, obviously, with the artwork and the if this is full color, whereas the hardcover is not. At least the one I have is not. But it just seems like this is a little bit different. The presentation is a little bit different than Swords and Wizardry Complete. Now, I could be completely wrong. No pun intended. Because I have looked at and reviewed quite a few OSR books since I reviewed Swords and Wizardry. But I seem to recall, like, for an example, we were just taking a look. We had, like, ship combat. I could have swore there was actually more info in the hardcover. I might be wrong. I could be completely wrong. So now we're getting into some magic items. Talking about that. I am going to have to talk to my nephew Cameron this weekend to see how things have been going with his Dungeons and Dragons that he's been running on the base. So out in Texas. So I told him, do not refer to it as Dungeons and Dragons. So how many pages here? We had 36. Yep. Actually 34, because I think it was open game license on the back. So I had mentioned to him, I said, don't refer to it as Dungeons and Dragons. When you're talking to people, just say, hey, you want to, I run some fantasy role playing. And if somebody says, well, what is that? Then you can say, well, like Dungeons and Dragons. But because he's not running D&D. He's, as far as I know, he's running White Box. So if he ends up with somebody who does play Dungeons and Dragons 5e, they're going to be like, hey, dude, this isn't Dungeons and Dragons, man. So I told him, I said, don't be saying it's Dungeons and Dragons. So he's like, yeah, that's a good point. All right, so we're going to take a look at the spells. So we've got our different spell lists. So we got magic users, clerics, and druids. Then we get into our descriptions. And one of the aspects I love about old school Renaissance games, and I have pointed this out before, say it all the time, I love how you can just get the spells in a paragraph or two, and it tells you, okay, this is what you need to know. You don't, as a game master, you don't need an entire page or two devoted to a spell, because this is all information that you should kind of have kind of bouncing around in your head. Now, you shouldn't have to, memorize everything, but you should have a clue. So you should have a clue of what Control Winds does, which for some reason that font is way bigger than the other ones. Oops. You should have an idea. What does Disintegrate do, or Dispel Evil, or Detect Magic, or Detect Evil? I'm not saying that you necessarily need to be able to just reel off exactly what it is and level and all the other, stat info, but you should have a clue. And a lot of times with more modern fantasy role-playing games where you have just an overload of information about the spells, it can be pretty tricky, especially when you have to sit there and you also have to keep in mind that you have different monsters and creatures and things like that you're going to, toss in the way of your players, and they usually have special abilities and things like that. That's a lot for a game master to have to keep in their head, especially if they're running a, published adventure, especially a modern published adventure, where now you've got dozens of pages that you're gotta kind of have an idea of what's going on with the adventure paths that are out there now. So I am a firm believer, like I said, and I don't get me wrong, I really do enjoy Dungeons and Dragons. I like Pathfinder, but to me, this is role playing. This is what I like, what I always dig. So that is Spells and Magic. How many pages do we have? 40. 38 really. So we've got 38 for Spells and Magic, and then we finally have Monsters. Get another peek at the artwork here. And this looks like probably about 58 pages or so. So we're going to have some monster descriptions. So It's Muse says story first, system second. Yes, I agree. I don't care about rules. Yes, we need rules to, formulate how do you figure out how to resolve things that aren't just obvious. Sure, you need rules for that. But one of my running gags for decades has always been about grappling rules. Do we really need grappling rules? Couldn't we just have unarmed combat, period? Do we have to have grappling? Sort of like, okay. All right, so we've got the various different creatures. The Demon Prince Orcus, who was actually, if I remember correctly, I think Orcus is on the cover of one of the alternate art Swords and Wizardry hardcovers. So we've got the Jinn, Doppelganger, dragons, got different kinds of dragons. But once again, we've got the monsters, same amount of page space kind of devoted to them as we have with the spells. So I like that as well. Although, when it comes to tactics that the creatures are going to utilize, a lot of times you will not see that in an OSR book. So Jason mentions that they like how the books are color coded. Something else I was explaining to my nephew is that because he's like, oh, well, I have an adventure in mind and so, such and such. And I told him, I said, well, you want to make sure that what your players do matters to the story, that you don't railroad them so that it's like you're playing your story I said you have to make sure that you're ready for the possibility that the players do something that you never saw coming and you roll with that punch. And now you're going to adapt the story you've got for what your players have done, as opposed to, well, the players are doing this. And now I'm just going to, kind of force them back over to onto the path. So Kevin says that they like how 7th edition Call of Cthulhu handles all this stuff with one generic rule for maneuvers. Yes. That you can kind of come up with the maneuvers. Dungeon Crawl Classics has that for the fighters with the mighty deeds. I should say fighters and dwarves. Very cool. I like the little monster book here. We've got some cool artwork. Once again, I want to say a lot of this is brand new art. Then we've got monsters by challenge level, which is not usually something you would see in an old school Renaissance role-playing game. Then we've got creating monsters, talking about experience point values, saving throws. And we got some notes. All right. So, and how many pages was that? That was, that's kind of weird. It's like goes from page 49 to page 10 to page 8. Hey, okay. See, and that's one of the things that I know a lot of people kind of knock Frog God Games about, is that some of their stuff just needs like another look before it goes to the printers. Once again, typos, things like that, as long as it's not like every single page, that doesn't bother me that much. So we've got the 4 booklets. It looked like the monster book was like 56 pages. So we've got the 4 booklets. The pad of character sheets, the little bookmark, and the set of dice where, for some strange reason, I have 2 8-siders, which is okay with me. I've got, they could have been like, well, there's no dice, and I'd been like, that's okay. I've got tons of dice. But that is, whoops, as I put everything in the top, duh. Let's try this. So it's Muse says typos and missing D6s. Yeah, it's okay. I'm not going to freak out about it. All right. So that is what we find when we take everything from the Swords and Wizardry Complete box set outside the box. So now we're going to take a look at the accessory pack. Keep in mind that this box carries an MSRP of $59.99. And it successfully kickstarted. It's, I believe it was just starting to be available for retail. Know that they were fulfilling everything. So we've got a little sheet here. So we've got Baron's Gambit, which is an adventure. We have more monsters. And then we've got a player screen, a referee screen, which is pretty low. Let's take a look at the artwork that we've got on it. That's pretty cool. I like that. And nice and thick. Okay, so let's open this up, see what we've got. So it's essentially attack tables. So there's our ascending armor class. But we also have the attack rolls. So those are for monsters. Here we got fighters, paladins, and rangers. clerics, druids, and monks. And then magic users, thieves, and assassin attack tables. So essentially, that's all that's on this screen is the attack tables. Huh, okay. So Doug Roberts says, just roll the D8 and subtract 2. Yeah, but what if you get a 1 or a 2? So you get a 0 or a -1? Ah. So I do like the artwork on this. Once again, this is not a review, but I have to say I would have liked to have seen something other than just the attack tables. But I guess that's what you're probably going to be utilizing the most. So there we go. So we've got that. Let's take a look at more monsters. Now, these booklets are not very long. So as far as that $34.99 MSRP, looks like most of it's devoted to this. So all right, so we got a bunch of other monsters here. Something I also point out all the time, and I'm sure many people out there who watch the show or they listen to, my reviews and things like that. Basically, I tell people all the time, as far as role-playing games, steal from everything. If you run across something that you really like in a game system that you have really no interest in running, steal it and add it to what you're running. That's why I don't necessarily have a dog in the fight when it comes to role-playing games outside of Call of Cthulhu, which I have run for decades. But when it comes to, like, say, fantasy role-playing games, I don't necessarily really have a dog in the fight because I don't run any of these games the way they're written. I run them close to the way they're written, but I always change stuff up. All right, so we've got the Baron's Gambit. So this is a quick adventure here. This was about 20 pages right there. So the village of Gambit. So I wonder if that's located near Hamlet. The abandoned temple. Uh-oh, spoilers, everybody. Spoilers. Spoilers. And as you can see, we've got a little read aloud. And it is not in italics, which is good because italics tend to be kind of difficult to make out sometimes. And if you notice, it's only about a paragraph. It's only a few sentences. And Wizards of the Coast themselves have said that read-alouds, I should say, should be no more than 3 sentences because people just start tuning out. And way too many people creating adventures. They have, pages of read aloud. And most of it has nothing to do with what the player characters would be experiencing. So Jason's asking, is that not in color? No, this is in black and white. This is not in color. I guess I'd say gray scale because we have the gray here as well. Same thing with the monsters, I believe. Yep. Okay, so with the accessory pack, we've got Baron's Gambit, more monsters, and the referee screen. And JPF asks, does all that material fit in the other box? That's exactly what I'm going to do. I put it in the box. Once again, the accessory pack is available. Look at that. Boink, right on in. For $34.99. What I'll end up doing is I'm going to review both the box set and the accessory pack together. So I am not going to do a separate review for the accessory pack. So Kevin says, yes, they supposedly left room in the box for more stuff that you want to take along to games. Cool. Very nice. So once again, this is Swords and Wizardry, the complete box set. And of course, I will have a review of this box set pretty quickly because I got to be honest, I'm going to probably start reading it tonight. So just finished up something else that I was reading for review. And I think I'll crack this open and take a peek. I have to go get my Swords and Wizardry hardcover because I want to take a peek to see what's different. Because I think there has been a little bit of a change in the presentation. Once again, I could be absolutely wrong, and it is exactly the same as the complete hardcover, but I will find out. All right. So if you're curious what's coming up on Monday's show, I am going to be unboxing and taking a first look at Hidden Strike, American Revolution from Worthington Publishing. Yes, I got a couple of Worthington games that arrived. So we are going to be taking a look at this. As far as Wednesday's show, a week from today, I don't know. I don't know yet. I've got a few things, but we'll see. You know, I always like to try to get some role-playing game stuff. So Jason points out they're sad that the color didn't carry over to the monster book. Yeah, well, I mean, even the color in the other books is more like a tint as opposed to a lot of different stuff. So Russell says it's decent, that they like Dungeon Crawl Classics better. They think the $34 is kind of steep for the accessory pack. I'm with you on that. It's $35 actually, $34.99. So yeah, I think that's a bit pricey. So, and the box set is $60. So keep that in mind as well. And that'll come into play as far as my review. But I like what we saw so far. So Russell asked, did I miss Tuesday's show? Actually, Russell, right now, because I am recuperating from the triple bypass surgery, I'm only doing 2 shows a week. So I'm doing a Monday show and I'm doing a Wednesday show. So maybe later on in the month, I might roll out a 3rd show. We'll look at getting back maybe to 4 shows a week. And then again, maybe not. Because I got to be honest, doing just 2 shows a week, they're pulling in more views than when I was doing like 4 shows a week. But once again, it usually depends on what the game is that I'm taking a look at. So Kringle says, thanks for the first look at the Swords and Wizardry box. Helped them decide if they want to buy it. Yep, that's one of the reasons why I do the first looks, so we can kind of take a peek at it together. In fact, somebody on the Oathmark video from Monday had asked something in the comment section, something like, so this first look, is it a first look for viewers or for the guy whose channel this is? And it's like, both. It's like, yeah, it's a first look. It's like an unboxing, except for a book. So for some strange reason, people just don't understand that. It's like, if I say a game unboxing, they know what that is. But if I say, yeah, it's a first look at a book, they're like, first look for who? Anyway. All right. So that is it for this time out. I will, of course, be back on Monday. But if you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, ding that bell. It'll not only let you know when the dispatch airs live right here on YouTube, it'll also inform you when I upload other videos, such as my upcoming review of Watergate from Capstone Games. So yes, this will be up this weekend. And don't forget, my review of Quetzal will be up tomorrow morning. So all of you out there who hung out and joined me in chat tonight, thank you very much. Always appreciate you taking some time out. Keep me company so I don't just, babble on into the ether all by myself. But then again, I know a lot of people out there don't have an opportunity to watch live. Regardless when you watch or how you watch, thank you so much for watching. Anyway, as I mentioned, once again, I'll be back on Monday. We'll be taking a look at Hidden Strike American Revolution from Worthington Publishing. And of course, until I see you next time, here's hoping each and every one of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang. Oh, you're still here. Well, while you're kicking it, how about subscribing to the Gaming Gang channel or seeing the latest episode of the Gaming Gang Dispatch?